Hey, everybody. Larry, Fort Worth Memories Museum and Group. It is Tuesday. It's 10 o'clock. Hometown Heroes and Rick and Mary. Y'all got the show.
Good morning, Larry. How are you today?
I'm good.
Mary?
Good
Welcome.
morning.
We have some special guests here, and we've got the general's wife and the general. And this is Ann Pottinger and Major General Kevin Pottinger, U.S. Air Force retired. And we had Kevin on the show about number 6, I think.
And what's today?
Today's 40.
40.
We're 40 today. 40,
Awesome.
40 episodes. So Kevin was here in the early days when we were just doing the live feed, but we wanted to kind of talk to y'all a little bit about being a general's wife, because I've been a military spouse just for a few months after I got out. Sue was still in. Mary's been a military spouse, and you were a military spouse from the time Kevin was a second lieutenant. Is that
Right?
Okay.
Right.
And little did you know, Kevin, when you were a second lieutenant, that one day you'd be a 2-star general, did you?
Never expected it.
Because you even retired, didn't you?
I
Or
did.
got out?
Yes, I did.
About 2000?
Right, 99, and stayed out for a couple of years. After 9/11, went back in.
Yeah. But you went through all the ranks with him. And, there's one movie, We Were Soldiers. And if you remember in that movie, it's a Mel Gibson movie, when things were going bad in Vietnam and they started getting all those notices that the different guys had died. The Mel Gibson's wife in the show, she was the one that had to keep it all together. I think he was a colonel maybe then. But that's kind of what the role of a senior officer's wife does, isn't it? You kind of keep things together.
Yeah, she did, because I was gone a lot, and she would keep things steady.
Because you don't only have your family and your children, but then the other spouses depend on you for leadership.
That's right. Well, I know one time when we were stationed in Germany, Kevin was TDY in Spain, and his grandfather died. And this is before cell phones and trying to get a hold of him. So I called I called whoever in the squadron leadership was left behind in Germany. And I called him and I said, I don't know what to do, because Kevin's in Spain. His grandfather's died. He is very close with him, but we were going to go back to the United States in 3 weeks for his sister's wedding. So we're like, this is difficult. What do we do? And anyway, they finally got through to Kevin, and you had to be like patched through. It wasn't like I could call directly and talk to him. So it was pretty tough. But anyway, we had to make a decision. What do we do? Does he go for the funeral, or does he go to his sister's wedding? Because we certainly couldn't afford to do both. And so there were, you had situations come up all the time, and everything always happened. And you all probably know this, but when the military member's gone, that's when disasters.
That's when everything goes
Everything
wrong.
goes wrong. Something
Yeah.
breaks, or family
Mhm.
situation like that. And anyway, that was a tough call to make, though.
And you were raised here in Fort Worth.
I was born in Dallas, and my father.
That's
Sorry,
easy,
yeah,
okay.
Eamon Carter's favorite place. No, and then my father worked for LTV, and then we moved away. And then he got hired by General Dynamics eventually, and we ended up back here. He was the program director of the F-16 when I was in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, and then when we first were married, or when I actually was in college at Texas Tech, that's where I met Kevin. He became the international sales for F-16s, so he traveled around the world, and a lot of the countries that bought the F-16, it's because of him selling it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you meet Kevin at Texas Tech?
In our apartment complex.
What were you doing out there?
So I was in pilot training at Reese Air Force Base,
Okay.
and I was living off base. I think at some point we were allowed to move off base, so I was living off base, rooming with another guy going through pilot training, and we happened to be underneath the apartment where Ann lived with 3 other.
You'd hear me in the morning.
Yeah. Yep. And so we passed each other. And then one time we decided to go out and went out 4-wheeling. And I think we kept going out after that.
And what year was that?
76,
Okay.
Yeah, 76.
70, wait, no, 77.
Right there. I think it would happen December,
77,
January.
77.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I called my parents, now I don't even know how I did this because now I'm looking at this going, we didn't have cell phones again. But I called my parents when we got engaged, and we got engaged at the beginning of 78.
Yeah.
And I called my parents, and they were overseas because my dad was selling F-16. And my parents were like, who is this man? What? You're getting, you're going to get married. And my dad was like, you will graduate. So I had to like double up on classes. I took a lot of over 18 hours and trying to get done. And I had to go to summer school. But my parents flew back they were overseas. They flew through Ireland because they picked up a bunch of crystal. I don't know why they did it then, but they picked up crystal. They're like, this will make a great wedding present. And yeah. And then they came out to Lubbock to meet Kevin because they're like, who
That's
is
the first
this?
time they met him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And my father was like, who's this guy?
I bet
The only
you were
thing
nervous, Kevin. Were you nervous?
we were too young to know what we were
I didn't know
doing.
any better. I just knew I wanted to marry Ann. So
But my dad being an F-16, program director, and then Kevin ended up flying the F-4 to start with. He was so excited because I'm one of 3 daughters. So he was so excited to have a son-in-law who was going to fly a plane that, he didn't have anything to do with the F-4, but then when he went into the
He
F-16,
was really excited.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
it was fun. We could
Yeah.
share a lot of stories, and so it was always interesting to talk with him and to learn how things were developed in the F-16 and why things were made the way they were. So
When they brought him in because the program was over budget and it was not going to make the
Behind
cut.
schedule and over
Yeah.
budget. the
And
way
he-
most of that government stuff
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. And he got it.
that's a
He
good
got
one.
it under budget and early. And
The rest is history. I mean,
yeah.
It's still being made in South Carolina.
it sure is. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We got to see him he finally got a flight in it at the Paris Air Show.
Did he really?
So we were over there. We were in Germany and we got to go to Paris and see him get the flight. And he was probably, I was thinking about this. He was probably about 58, maybe 60 at the time.
The
So
Paris Air Show was a huge show, and General Dynamics at the time, man, they'd have elaborate displays from the chalet and entertain people because they were trying to sell airplanes.
yeah. Well, and we were, young. You may have been a first lieutenant by then, but we were really poor for living overseas. The dollar was not doing well. And to go and experience that, it was like, woo.
Well, yeah, people think that, officers make a ton of money, but especially before the mid 80s, nobody in the military made very much money.
Right.
I tell people my first full year in the Air Force was 1979, and I made $5,500 for the year.
Wow. Yeah.
And people think that, that it was always gravy, but it was not for anybody.
Yeah. Well, I remember looking at his first paycheck going, oh,
Yeah. How are we going to do this? If we have kids, we're going to have to go on food stamps and WIC and everything
Yeah.
else.
Well, you worked
Exactly.
too. You worked
I
there
did work.
at Ramstein. We were stationed at Ramstein Air Base down in southern Germany, and went and got a job at the credit union, I think.
Well, first I worked for the Army, actually.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then that was what I saw with that, though. What was interesting was I just had a clerical type job because being a spouse, it was really hard at that time. So I had this job and I worked with a lot of German nationals, and they were just constantly off. They had all these vacations and unlimited sick leave. And so the few American people like me, we were there all the time working for peanuts. Yeah. And they were always gone. It's like, where's, you'd be like, I need the supervisor to sign this paper or whatever. And be like, well, they're gone. They're in Spain for 6 weeks.
Remember that
Yeah.
first car?
Oh yeah. And we had a Volkswagen. So he picked me up. He moved over there first, and he picked me up with this. He was so proud of his car that he bought. And it was a Volkswagen station wagon. and it had a hole in the floor. You know, you could see the road. It was sort of red and blue. Kind of. I wasn't sure which color it was supposed to be.
So you,
Yeah.
you went kind of a long way from that Volkswagen with a hole in the floor. And then whenever you were Major General, did you have an airplane that you flew around at the end or something?
No.
You didn't have a.
No,
He
we
didn't get it. He didn't get his own jet.
no, we didn't do that. But things changed over time, you know, and,
Yeah.
and we were able to make ends meet. But it was tough that first few years.
Well, I remember those days, you know, when I first went in the Army, and Sue and I were moving out to California. We didn't have any money. You know, I'd get stationed out there, and she hadn't gone in the Army yet. And we stayed with some friends in El Paso, and they'd given us some apples. And we got to Arizona, and they said, you either have to eat these apples
because
here,
you can't come
or
in.
you have to throw them away. And I said, we need to get to California. I threw them away. We drove past that checkpoint, and Sue started crying. That's all the food we had.
Oh.
One thing, so Ann was an accountant, or that's what she got her degree in. So she was really good at keeping our finances, and we all were on a budget. And so I think if it wasn't for her doing that, we'd probably be, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But that was a big help, especially in the early days.
And so from those early days, as you progressed up rank, then you had different responsibilities with the base and things like that, didn't you?
I did, although you can probably attest this, when you go in the reserves, it is a little different, and you're not quite as connected. And they didn't have that key spouse program that they have now. Even when he was the wing commander, they still didn't have that.
Right.
So some of the programs and things, I think they've realized, even if you're a reservist, your family still needs support. And I don't think through your military career, we didn't get quite the same kind of support that now people realize.
Yeah.
So you kind of, he was active duty through the first 15 years.
15 years.
And then
What
it's
rank
been
were you when
reserves.
you left active duty?
I came out as a major.
Okay.
And then we were stationed at Bergstrom and we moved there in Austin, thought, okay, this is it. This is where we're going to live forever. And then they shut the base down in 4 years. So then, he came, it always happened like he would come home and go, well, guess what? I don't have a job after. And I was like, what do you mean you don't
I was
have a job?
over I think I'd been deployed we were over in Bosnia.
Oh, yeah.
Missions in Bosnia. And I came back, and we had learned got on the plane. It looks like our unit's going to be shut down, but I thought,
but go fight for the United States.
Yeah, but go over there and fly those missions. But anyway, so when I got back, I said, hey, it's true. We're really shutting down. So we got to go find another job somewhere. So fortunately we got picked up here in Carswell, and we're able to get a job in the
And that was active duty then, or was you
Reserves.
reserve at that time. Yeah.
One of the things, all y'all know that too, the network of military, you've run. So he had obviously flown with people that were stationed here, and they knew him and they knew his reputation, and he'd gone through weapons school in the F-16. So they knew what they needed here and what he could provide. So it fortunately, made it possible to move. But it was a little scary time because oh boy, we got 2 little kids and,
And Sarah and Patrick's the oldest, right?
right.
And I think we've got some pictures of you and Patrick. You were holding Patrick, and then there's another one of you and Patrick in front of F-16.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And then,
Then they recreated that photo
Yeah.
with in front of the F-22.
yeah, which is pretty
Because
cool.
Patrick, their son, flew the F-22. He's doing training now. Isn't he?
Yeah. Flying the,
In San
Randolph.
Antonio,
Yeah.
Okay.
No, okay, yeah, there he is. That's Patrick and Kevin, and that's in Las Vegas. And Kevin took Patrick out to the squadron, and they had Patrick think that he was going to actually go fly a plane, and they did this whole briefing. And he had his little flight suit on, and he was.
we had a G suit on him. We had to pin it up, but we did everything. He came to the briefing. We sat and he was like number 2, and we were telling him, okay, these are all the things
He's
you're going to do on this
excited.
mission.
Oh yeah.
And he's thinking, no kid,
He was
he's
like
going.
4 or 5.
We all went to the restroom together, and he stood at his stall, and and then we all walked out to the jets. And I remember him climbing up the ladder, and I go, okay, Patrick, hop up in your jet. And he starts climbing up there, and he's no kidding, getting ready to hop into the seat of the
He's ready
F-16.
to
We
fly,
go,
huh?
Patrick, you're really not. He looked at me like, yes, I am.
How was that whenever he got his wings? Was that
Oh, it was-
pretty-
oh, yeah,
that's
it was
pretty
very cool.
special, huh? And
Yeah.
then to go become an F-22 pilot.
Right,
That's
right. Yeah,
something.
he far exceeded anything I ever
And he did weapons school
Yeah,
too.
he was always number 1, and just a tremendous pilot, and just a great officer.
Well,
And-
Kevin got to be his speaker at his graduation
Mm-hmm.
from pilot training. And that commander, I guess he was the wing commander,
Mhm.
he ended up becoming a 3-star general eventually in the Air Force. So,
Yeah.
But at the time, were you a general then?
Wing commander here.
Oh, wing commander here. So still.
And Patrick said, "Hey, Dad, come. Would like you to be the speaker." So I said, "Okay, I'll do that." So, but he never told his wing commander. A lot of when I initially went up there, he never told his wing commander that I was going to be coming up for a visit. And I remember I pulled up in an F-16, and his wing commander comes up in his car. And he goes, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but Patrick never told me, who you were or what you did." But he goes, "We're glad to have you here." But Patrick he's never used your rank or, anything to get anywhere. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So everything he did
On his
on
own.
his own.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. He never ever used me
And-
to get him anywhere, which
He's
was
active
great.
duty. Or is he
He's reserved now too.
Okay.
He left when he was in Hawaii active duty, and then he had the option. He could have stayed and gone into the Guard there, or but he wanted to get back.
Because you were stationed in Hawaii,
Yes.
and you lived there too.
No,
Okay.
I was teaching at that time in Keller, so I stayed here and taught. And Sarah was in college, and newly out of college.
What did you do in Hawaii? You were
Yeah,
For
so
the
I was
Pacific, or-
the mobilization assistant to the commander of the Pacific Air Forces. So basically, I was oversee all the reserve forces, and then I would sit and cover for him if he was out of country, or I'd be.
you got to go. You got to travel.
Oh,
a
I
lot,
traveled.
right?
It was wonderful. I traveled all over the Middle East and saw just
In
all
Southwest Asia.
Southwest Asia. Saw a lot of
Do
neat
you have
things.
any idea how many countries you've been in?
Oh gosh, probably. I don't know, in that area, probably at least 8 different countries, and every one was just a tremendous experience. Got to learn a lot about.
We went
the
to
cultures.
Vietnam.
Yeah, a couple of
to
times
see-
to Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, few times, Bangladesh. It was really pretty
Were you
exciting.
stationed in Korea? too?
Yes, yeah, I spent a lot of
Did you
time
live
in Korea.
I did.
Okay.
Sarah was born in Korea.
Okay.
And in fact, that was funny because the Air Force Base did not have at that time the ability or didn't want to deliver babies there. So they sent me to the Army base. But I was supposed to go up there a couple weeks ahead of her birthday. But I had Patrick as a young little boy, and I was like, I'm not going. And I'm sure, I don't know if you got pressure, but I didn't go like I was supposed to. And I stayed. And so the night that I had Sarah, we were going to a party, and we were all
That
dressed
night?
up
Yeah,
that night. And Kevin
It
was
a
in his
dining-
mess
it was-
dress.
yeah,
and
we were all dressed up.
and I and I was all, and I told him, I go, I don't feel good. I think something's wrong. And so we went to the hospital there. And the doctor said, he goes, I'm a dermatologist. and he goes, I don't feel qualified to see what's going on here. So they got what kind of
a
helicopter?
Black Hawk.
A Black Hawk. And they sent me to Seoul in a Black Hawk. And
Yeah,
they put me in a helmet. I was in labor, and I had a helmet on, and
Oh my
and
gosh.
a night flight over Seoul. It was beautiful, though. I mean, even with
In between the contractions.
yeah,
you enjoyed
I was
the
like,
flight,
look
huh?
at this scenery. Oh, it hurts. No,
Were you on the helicopter?
No. In fact, I was.
so
So
he
I
had to
had
go
to,
figure out what to do about Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just flew your F-16 down there, huh?
Yeah, actually at that time. So I ended up driving. I had to drive from, because we were in
Osan.
Osan, and we had to drive to Yongsan. That's where Ann was. So her flight was probably like a 30-minute flight, but I think it took me at least 4 or 5 hours to get up there
With
just
traffic,
the way
because
traffic
of the way
was.
traffic in
Oh, man.
Korea.
But they also told me, they said, you're gonna have to pay for that flight that your
Yeah,
wife.
they were, because
I
they
go,
were
"What?"
like, you have abused the system, but they ended up viewing it as a training mission, and so they didn't charge us.
That's off the record.
Yeah.
Don't catch up for us now.
You could have billed in the mail Friday this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
overlooked that. So.
Yeah. It was really, I mean, it was quite an interesting, and the doctor, when I never saw the doctor again. I mean, the doctor that delivered her, he came in, checked me, and he goes, you'll be about 2-3 hours. You'll have her. And we were hoping Kevin would make it in time. He
Did
just
you
made
make it?
Just made it. Yes. Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
was good.
You're
Yeah.
probably nervous riding down there, weren't you?
Yeah. Because I there's one day I drove back from Seoul down to Osan, and it took me 12 hours. So just the roads were just
They
always,
had freeways,
Oh,
but it
yeah.
just was. And if you got in like one of those roundabouts, and you got into one of those situations, nobody would move. So everybody jam up into the middle, and then
You just keep going around until
it's,
somebody runs out of gas. And then
yeah. It was a whole nother experience living there.
It was a good experience though.
We've had a good life. I've got to admit, it's been a good life. But once after he was the wing commander, and then he went to Denver, the Pentagon, and Hawaii, I was teaching and stayed here, and so he would just come home.
you commute.
Yeah. But that's where she was really the continuity back home, because I was gone up in Denver and in Washington, D.C. I actually lived there. I had an apartment, so I'd come back, every couple of
times,
weeks.
yeah.
And then, so Ann was really running the place
Man,
for,
it's tough.
Were you a
few
school
years.
teacher at Keller?
Yes,
How
Yeah.
many years did you do that?
about 20. And
Wow.
then I taught private school.
Wow.
So I retired from Keller.
So you-
Everybody'd like to know what's wrong with our Fort Worth ISD.
All the schools.
All of the schools.
What school did you teach at? Kelly?
I taught at Heritage, Willis Lane, Ski, which is South Keller Intermediate, which is no longer there. It's the computer technology place now. And then I taught at Holy Trinity Catholic School.
Okay.
So
You have to be pretty brave just to be a teacher
yeah, nowadays.
nowadays.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changed even. I mean, I retired from Keller in 2016. It's changed.
Yeah.
So
I don't envy our teachers. They
Yeah.
go through a
Tough
lot.
job.
it is.
so
Because
in a
parents
way,
don't parent, so you gotta try to instill the discipline and the rules and everything, and it's just crazy.
it is.
It's crazy.
One of the really neat things was at South Keller, Kevin brought Leo Thorsness, the Medal of Honor, and because he was part of the Air Power Foundation then, and he brought him to the school, and we had one of the girls in my class was the class president. Anyway, she got to meet him, and I think he really inspired her. But he was so wonderful to have the kids see. It was on Veterans Day to see somebody like that,
Yeah.
and they were they were silent. So that behavior that day was amazing. The kids were just enthralled.
Totally into it.
Yeah,
They
Yeah.
were. It was beautiful to see.
And Mary and I have noticed that we did a lot of stuff with our veterans from roll call at Wayside Middle
Mhm.
School
Right.
in Saginaw. And we take the veterans there on Veterans Day, and they were very attentive.
Yeah.
And
And we've
asked a lot of
got to do more of that.
Yes.
Yeah, because what happened at Wayside, they had a change in leadership, and then
We lost our contact.
we weren't invited, and we went every year on for Veterans Day, one day that week, and it was a big deal. We'd go into
The whole day.
classrooms all day in classrooms and have stuff set up in the library. It was just really impactful for these young kids, and they asked great questions. I took Fisk Hanley most of the time, was who I was with most of the time. And every year we go in the classrooms and, they'd ask him and he'd be telling all kinds of stories. And then at the end of the day, they bring all the vets into the gym and all the kids would be there. They'd sing songs. They just really made a big deal of it. But we don't have schools. We get a couple of times Don's been, somebody's met Don and said, hey, we really need to get you in our school. And he's like, okay. And then we never hear from him.
Yeah.
So, but we've got to get into more schools and really, get these kids excited about history and hearing about
History and patriotism.
Right.
And why do we care about our country?
Right.
Yeah. When
we
somebody
took
is
civics out, we took all the classes out that made people proud to be an American.
right. Well, I saw something the other day with somebody who's becoming an American citizen, and they were asking him questions, an adult, and he's Canadian. They were asking him questions, and I'm thinking, I wonder how many kids could even answer, how many forms of government, how many branches of the government, how, the different, yeah.
They can't.
No.
They-
I can't even tell you who the
Yeah.
current president is.
They've asked these people those man on the street interviews, and
Right.
it's embarrassing. They just don't have any idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
None.
Well, I look at, a long career, military career, and your career was
38 years.
Mine wasn't
39.
as long as it seems because I had a 19 and a half year break.
Oh, okay.
So it was 22 years, but I have almost a break as long as my time in service.
And you were under Potts
Right.
command.
He was my wing commander when
Okay.
I was an Air Reserve technician. I was full time. And the base, we worked in the same building. We talked all the time.
Yeah.
One of the best
Did
leaders
you
I ever
come
worked
back
for.
after you made general? Did you come back to
Well, I
class?
came back actually as a lieutenant colonel.
Okay.
And then I, just things just kind of unfolded. Different positions would open up, and they need someone to go into those positions. And I know sometimes it wasn't the best, happiest decision that I made to, for the family, but I would, do what I thought was right. And
I think he had that service before self.
Yeah.
One of our core values.
Yeah.
And I think both of you have that because I've been in a lot of different situations with y'all serving people.
Mhm.
And both of you have such a compassion for people and a servant's heart. And I mean, y'all are so busy doing stuff for other people.
Yeah.
To make sure that people are taken care of.
Right.
And that's what, it's so special about y'all. It's just, and you're such a good team too. I mean,
Yeah.
Thank you.
you complement each other. So
Yep.
you work well together, and I mean, you have a lot of different organizations that you take care of. And Kevin's you're the military preparedness.
Yeah.
Is it preparedness?
Texas Military
Okay.
Preparedness Commission under Governor Abbott. And so I'm a commissioner for him in that program, and I've been doing that for about 7 years now. And
Okay.
anyway, it's been a great program. It's been a perfect fit for living here in Fort Worth and having been assigned at the Joint Reserve Base, and being able to stay connected with what's going on out there. So it's been
And
great.
y'all really stay connected with what's going on there. I mean,
Yep.
you got your finger on the pulse of everything happening there, which is a big asset to NESJRB. So,
Right. That's been great. But one thing Ann's done, and I think you're going to maybe ask her about, is that Holidays and Heroes
Yeah.
program, which has been
I got my hats. I got
Oh,
this
that's
hat,
the
Freedom Mobility hat, and then I got my holidays.
She
and
wears
heroes
many
hat.
hats.
She wears many hats.
yeah, and we had Carrie Ortega.
Uh-huh.
She was on here a long time ago, talking about Holidays for Heroes. And you are on the board of Holidays for Heroes. You're the secretary of that
Yes.
organization.
Secretary of both.
Okay.
Secretary of both.
And for the
I have to take the minutes.
Yeah.
and for the Air Power Foundation or the council,
Right.
you're the executive. What's your title?
Executive, I think assistant
You
or
run
something
the
like that.
deal is what it means.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she
Well,
really does.
this is an interesting little side note, but the other day, Rob Clint, who's a member of the council, had made these, put together these go bags, and Kevin and Jack Mills, who had been his chief master sergeant,
Mhm.
they ended up out there together with the current can we say,
Yeah.
current wing commander and his chief. And it was like, so here they were from 2009, 10, and here are the current ones. So that was kind of a neat thing. And they were passing out these like go bags for
For the
military.
deployers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
So
was
it's
pretty
A
neat.
couple of those are people that we have that are very good friends. One of them works for my husband now. He changed from being an art to working for DCMA, and so it's he. We were talking to him late last week when he was like, "Yeah, they keep delaying." So
Yeah.
they finally, I think, got out of here.
Yeah.
So they're on their way now.
Well, we
Yeah.
got the airlift left a couple of days ago, and I saw Marshall last night, Colonel Harrison last night. He told me that airlift had landed in the place it was going, which is still considered classified. And but the other aircraft are supposed to be going out here to rest of the package. So they got a lot of forces over there, but they still have more to get into theater.
And you and Mary know firsthand how that is to
Yes.
move a lot of people
Right.
Yeah.
in other places.
Right.
Always seems to be a little easier getting them there than somehow getting them home.
Yeah,
is
that's
my
right. They
experience.
have trouble letting go of them. They
Golly, can you just get people home?
Yeah.
That was my experience in Romania, worse than anywhere else. Was getting them home from Romania. It was miserable.
I've got one other comment about being the general's wife before we start talking about things that y'all have going on now. And you'd mentioned something the other day about who served the tea at a function, and you said that it was the senior officer's wife,
Right.
regardless of whose home they were in, was the one that was the server for the rest of them.
So we went, I guess that very first, first married, first coffee I went to, I didn't have any, I hadn't been raised with the military, even though my dad had been a aerospace contractor, but I didn't have any experience with that. And so we go to this coffee and, there's like a little shuffle over who's going to, it wasn't my house. I wasn't trying to serve or anything, but then I realized, and we, kind of had a little talking about the squadron about, okay, this is how this works. There's a protocol. And it was like, what in the world? But I think that, so we were married in 1978. I think it was still a little bit of a holdover from the 60s, still in the military wives. And I think, obviously that has changed because women are working and aren't as engaged as they were. But that was a real whole, this is
Where was that? Was that
unbelievable.
at George or Germany?
Yeah, George. Yeah.
our
So,
first assignment together.
Yeah. Well, and then when we were at George, so he was learning the F4, they held up our assignment because there were 7 pilots and we were going to, 2 of them were going to Germany. We were one of them. And they were afraid to tell him that we were going to Germany. So they held up all the assignments. Nobody got their assignments. And then we ended up with like 3 weeks notice. Oh, by the way, you're moving to Germany from California.
It was probably the best assignment we ever had, though.
Germany?
Yeah, going over there young. We were just,
Poor.
newly married,
young,
poor,
poor.
newly married, but it was
No children?
really okay.
Yeah, you
children.
can see
Had a dog.
everything from Ramstein. You go all over the place
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Ramstein.
Yeah, it was.
We skied in Switzerland, skied in, the Black Forest. Just all kinds of, went to Paris Air Show, did a lot of fun things. Spain,
Mhm.
We did have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But
But it didn't start off real well because when like Ann said, when she came in, I was deployed. I was gone. So
when I arrived at the base, he was in Spain. He always was in Spain. They always sent them to Spain because the weather was good.
Yeah.
In Germany, the weather was bad. So they would go fly out of Spain and leave the families in Germany. And I showed up and he had gotten us an apartment near an army base, like long way from the Air Force base. And I was like, this isn't going to work.
it was pretty old school. And the guy was out there with a
With
big
a sickle.
sickle
That's how
cutting
he
the grass.
was.
And she saw that. She goes, I'm not staying here.
We're not living here.
So did you move someplace
We
else
did.
while
We
he was
found
gone, or-
somehow I ran into a wife in the squadron who said, I think my neighbors got an apartment that they're going to rent. They just built this house. And so we went, and I think he had just gotten
Harvard.
back. We went and met them, and And they said, "Oh, okay, you're perfect, but no dogs." And we were like, "Oh, uh-oh." I said, "Well, we have a dog." And they go, "Well, what kind of dog do you have?" And I said, "We have a German Shepherd." And they go, "Oh, German Shepherd. Okay."
Okay.
It was a German dog, so
Yeah.
that's okay.
They were like, "You're all right. You're in."
That's good.
So anyway, so I was probably a lot more involved when he was young than when he became the general. Then well, there was one thing though. I did break my ankle in Alaska, and Kevin was a general, and he was over in Korea, and I was in Alaska with our son who was stationed there and our
Put you
daughter.
on an Apache copter and send you
Yeah.
back. Huh?
Yeah. No, they took me to the Elmendorf, and it's a trauma hospital, and they took me there, and then when they're checking me in and they looked at my ID card, they said, "We've got to call the base commander." And I go, "What?" I mean, I'm in the hospital. You're calling he goes, it's protocol. We got to call the base commander. You're a general's wife. I was like, please don't call him. He's not going to want to know I'm in the hospital here. So anyway, I don't know if they called him, but I didn't.
They didn't call me.
Yeah. We called you to tell
Yeah,
you.
you did. Yeah.
So I had to fly back here to have surgery. Yeah.
What are you doing in Alaska?
We were hiking.
Oh, okay.
I broke my ankle up on a hike. So yeah, but that was my biggest experience of being the general's wife. Like, oh boy, I'm in trouble here.
And you retired, you kept working,
Right.
but then you became very involved in community things with
Right.
the Air Power Foundation,
Right.
and still doing things that kind of got you involved in the base more because that's what they do. So, and then you were in the background helping and doing all kinds of things. And because I remember probably the first time I really worked on anything with y'all was at the hangar at American, where we're having a dinner to thank the people with American.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
and,
right.
and it was after the sky ball.
Right.
And so all the people that worked at the hangar, the foundation put on a dinner for them. And there was Kevin and Ann, and man, y'all were back there just serving up that food and stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that was a great, the kind of the launching point for us having our own foundation called the Freedom Mobility Foundation was when I was working for the Air Power Foundation. And then also it kind of goes back to when I was on an accident investigation over in Iraq, and I remember coming out of Iraq and they loaded us up on the medevac and looking at all these soldiers that were, some of them they were just keeping alive to get back to Germany so they could see their parents before they weren't going to be here anymore. And anyway, so that, and then being in the Air Power Foundation, I remember I was on a salute to the troops, and that's where American would load up, bring all these men and women out of Washington, D.C. that were in the hospital out
Like
there.
Walter Reed.
Yeah, Walter Reed, that were severely injured. And I was invited to go through the Air Power Foundation on a little bit of a vacation, I guess you might want to call it. And then they take them to Las Vegas. And it was just to see all these injured men and women, but see them just happy and just wanting to, do things with their lives, even though they were severely injured. They were all just wonderful people. And I just thought, maybe there's something more that we can do to help these, to give them that mobility, because they were in wheelchairs, but it seemed like they were still just confined. And then, we kind of launched into a friend, Carter Maloof, introduced John Winsauer and I, and then we came up with this idea of, getting trucks and putting lift systems in them and giving these special track chairs and iButs and other types of mobility devices to these folks.
Hand controls now,
Yeah.
and some of the vehicles, they need hand controls, and they need a couple of them. We've done seat transfer systems where somebody can go from their wheelchair into the seat, and then the seat lifts up into their vehicle. So
We just tried to make these men and women independent, so they didn't have to rely on someone always to help them get to where they wanted to go. And we wanted to give them on rivers. And from Lisa, your good friend Lisa, they love to get outdoors, even though they're paralyzed or don't have legs, or they still like to get outdoors. And so
And
that's what we do.
it's not just military or veterans that you help either. It's first responders. Because Lisa Ramsey with the Fort Worth Police Department, and she's paralyzed from about here down.
Yeah.
And we were able to give her a truck and a lift and iBot.
Yeah. No, we were able, it's been really quite an adventure because we started out with trucks and an ant lift in the back of them. And it's just kind of grown to different ways of getting these folks around, because we found that everyone is different. I mean, you go from just like, you two are different, Ann and I are different, but we have different needs. And we would just talk to the people. What do you want? What kind of mobility? And they would tell us, and they say, okay, we'll figure out how to make it work. And it's amazing how much equipment is out there. You just need to look for it. And John Winsour, who's on our board, he's really good at researching, and he finds types of vehicles that you would never even imagine are out there. And so,
and last year at the Free Mobility Golf Tournament, they had that solo rider that I never had seen, but it's just like a little golf cart for one person, but that seat can swivel around. So an amputee can sit in that seat and
it lifts them up too.
Lifts them up so they can just hit that golf ball. And
It's pretty
you
neat.
took that idea and you've had that company kind of retrofit one that we can get down to the river on,
right,
to take them fly fishing.
Yep, we took it out up to Broken Bow last week. We had it modified, and John Fassett, another board member, we took it up there, Carter, and we tested it out in really extreme conditions, and we put a lot of fly fishermen on it to test it, and it worked like a champ. So we got another vehicle now that we can,
and that's maybe not as expensive as some of these track chairs and iBots are.
Even
25,
iBot,
35.
$35,000.
Yeah.
But it's got to help. Like taking the iBot to Broken Bow, figured out that, hey, it needs a different kind of tire.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that iBot is spectacular for day-to-day living in your home, work, but it's not so great. I mean, and it's okay outside, but it's not so great in like a rough terrain. So that's something else. A lot of these people need more than one kind of vehicle, because what they need for daily life, but then what they need to go outdoors are different.
Yeah. And then a lot of them have families, they have young children. And so, sometimes the VA thinks that they're just working sometimes with the individual. They're not thinking about that this individual also has a spouse, has young children. So they need larger type vehicles to accommodate their needs. So this is kind of where USAA heard about us, and USAA reached out to us and told us, okay, we'll give you vehicles. You tell us what kind of vehicle you need, and we'll do our best to get that type of vehicle. So we started with trucks, but now we've kind of branched over into SUVs, large SUVs. And, but like Ann said, we put the hand controls in them. We have some of them that transfer seats out, but it's all about getting the person to do, or the ability to do what they want to do. And the other day when we were at Broken Bow, I remember I was standing on the top of this hill, and John Fassett was in the solo rider. He was going to test it. And there's this one area where the river is just beautiful, but it's really difficult to get into. And you got to be able to go down a pretty steep hill. And I remember I was standing there and I was watching John driving that soul rider down there. And I was going, this is what it's all about, to get them from this parking lot, a quarter of a mile onto that river so they can enjoy what we get to enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's what's so neat to see
And
these
just
people.
like those guys that like to go hunting.
Oh, yeah.
And get an ATV. Because there were 2 Fort Worth police officers that you were able to give ATVs to at the Armed Forces Bowl this last December.
Yes.
And so,
Give them a little off-road ability. One is an amputee, and one is just has had tons of surgeries because of being hit by a car, right?
Yeah, he got hit he was trying to stop a vehicle and hit, badly injured. But so again, that's back to what, we asked them, what would you all like? And at first we were going to give them Can-Am so they could go off road and hunt. But then after we talked with them, worked with them, one of them, the double amputee, said, I'd rather have something. I've got 4 children. I'd like something I could take my family around in, take the kids up at school. So we got him a 6-seater and a mule, and he's doing great with that. And then the other guy, the one that got run down, he's kind of a hair on fire, loves to go fast. So we got him a Kawasaki. I forget what model it is, but it, it's a very fast vehicle. And so 2-seater. So he and his wife, they don't have children, but we just try to match it to what the, what the police or what the military members like Justin Ellis.
Yeah, I was with him the other night and we were talking about
Yeah,
his
he uses his
ATV.
on his farm, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Ranch
he
or whatever.
needed to work on his farm. And so I'm making arrangements to go out there and
Do a
do
little
some
filming.
videos of them using that. It was a Can-Am.
Yeah.
And using that because it needs to get out where it can get out and work.
Yeah, he picks up, molasses licks, salt licks, hay bales. His little boy,
He has an ant lift on his.
yeah, he's got an ant lift, and his little boy is only 10.
He likes to drive it too.
He does, and his little boy. I remember the first when we delivered that Can-Am, that little boy, he figured it out. He said, he goes, I can't touch those pedals because I'm too little, but it has hand controls. So he was able to drive it, and his dad was looking at him, going, "You're not going to drive that Can-Am." He goes, "Well, Dad, you want me to help you?" So
Yeah,
anyway,
and Justin, he was a DART police officer
yeah,
in Dallas.
motorcycle police officer.
A motorcycle police officer, and he's shooting somebody in a
Yeah.
car, T-boned him, and
Mm.
he's paralyzed. But
Yeah.
they're still out. He's still on duty, just like Lisa Ramsey.
Yep.
They're still out working, but they have some needs that the workman's comp or the whatever insurance can't cover, and that's where y'all come in.
Well, and I was going to say too, with USAA, they partnered with National Auto Body Council and did the recycled rides. And then sometimes different collision companies partner to restore the vehicles, and they're not vehicles that have been totaled. They're vehicles that maybe had been stolen, something like that had happened to them, where so their integrity of the vehicle is still there. They just have to be repaired. But one of the guys we were able to get the VA to cover the VA covered the lift that would bring the chair from the street up into the back of the pickup. But the VA would not cover the hand controls
Or
and the
transfer
seat
seat.
transfer system that
Yeah.
would help the guy get in.
There, but
Yeah.
we can't. Give
Yeah,
you
but we'll lift your chair into the back.
Yeah.
But it's like, so anyway, we ended up covering, and that one we did through Carry the Load last year, that which we're participating in this year. But Carry the Load fundraising enabled us to pay for that guy's hand controls and seat transfer system, and then we were able to get the VA to do the lift system. So sometimes Kevin spends hours on the phone coordinating programming between VA, whoever we're working with, trying to get what we can for somebody. And then the last one I have to say that we just did was Jimmy Woolsey's chair, his track chair, and he is straight civilian, but this is a gentleman from Fort Worth, and his family ordered him a track chair so he could have mobility out on their little ranch that they live. And he ended up in the hospital, and they never took it out of the crate. They were unable to have him use it. And we found a guy who happened to reach out to us on Facebook. So social media is so wonderful. In North Carolina, he was like, you could see just from what he said. And when we talked to him on the phone, the emotion, the despair that he felt with it, the way his life was, because he has a disease where he has tumors growing and it disabled him. But anyway, we ended up able to give that track chair to him. So, we had to pay to ship it, but that was all we
And
had.
it was only a week after Jimmy passed away that this gentleman saw our foundation. And so
So it was
when we
like, here
told
we've got this track chair that's in storage that has never been used. And now we've got a guy that is I'm just, you're my last chance. I'm hoping you can help me or point me in the right direction. I mean, it just amazing.
and Jimmy's wife, we explained the story to her, and she goes, "You guys give it wherever you want." And so she goes, "It sounds like that'd be a great fit." So
Wow.
And you
Yeah.
don't just help people locally, you help people around the country.
yes,
Because at the Army Navy game, you were able to present 2 vehicles,
Right.
One to a Navy guy, one to an Army guy.
yep. And
Right.
the Army gentleman was from Vermont, and then the Navy was from California. And then David Mathis, one of our first recipients, we got him a Can-Am, an iBot, and an Amlift, and we just
He just got his iBot finally.
yes, and he lives in Georgia, so you're right. We just kind of reach out all over.
Well, and
The
that
country.
one was partnered with Independence.
Independence Fund.
Yes,
Independent. It's not fun.
Is it fun?
I get this mixed
Independence
up.
Corps.
Okay.
It's Gary Lawson.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Who's a very generous man,
Yeah.
and he's
he
helped us a lot.
raised probably 2/3 of the money, and then we kicked in the other third for that one, and then we paid for his training costs, and thanks to American Airlines,
Yeah, American
we were
Airlines.
able to fly him with the miles. So we always need to always mention American Airlines has been very generous helping us. I know they help roll call too, but
America, yeah, you know, people that if you're out there listening and you have miles you just aren't going to use, give them back to the Heroes program, because that's how all this stuff happens.
exactly.
Is that we're able to fly people where they need to go via American Airlines because people donate those miles back.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is such I mean, you know, to be able to, and when they fly, especially our recipients, they have to usually fly with a caregiver. So you're talking
Mhm.
2 people flying round
Right.
trip. It's, you know, it's
And a dog, like I think
Mhm.
Lisa
yeah,
had to
Lisa
take
had
her
travel
dog.
with her dog. It gets expensive, and but they have been wonderful in coordinating, you know, the care, the wheelchair help, and all that has been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our guy coming for the luncheon here on the 28th of April is coming out of Tulsa, and we're using American is taking care of that. And that's 3 people because he got a little bit sick. You know, he's 97, 98 years old, and he got a little bit sick, and he needs a nurse with him too now. So we're flying 3 people here
Yeah.
round trip. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's to your point, that's not cheap, right? If you have to fly Tulsa to DFW even, because some of those smaller airports are even more expensive than the big airport.
They are.
We probably couldn't be, Rick, as you know, because in the foundation, moving these people around, whether you're trying to move them to training or just give them to one point to another. If we didn't have American Airlines, it would hurt us, because the equipment, as you know, is so expensive modifying these vehicles, and so the amount that American Airlines gives us saves us. You know, I won't put a dollar figure on it, but it's a large sum of money.
And the training that we have to send the people to are for the iBot wheelchair with mobility. And it's in Boston, around Boston, isn't it?
It's north
New
of
Hampshire.
Boston. Yeah.
And so they have to go there to learn how to work this chair, because the chair can go over curbs, it can climb stairs and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's really a great vehicle to use, you know, to get around your house. Or we took them down the river one time. I thought,
Yeah.
they weren't built for this.
No,
but
they weren't.
used it.
They weren't, but from those pictures that you took and shared with Mobius Mobility, they developed that larger tire, and because they thought, well, let's find a way to do this, because they thought maybe this chair will be capable of getting people down. And not only was it going over rocks, it was actually sitting in water too. So
No, I thought, what short it out. I don't have to drag this thing back.
Yeah, this 300-pound chair.
But a foundation like Free Mobility, it's not just that foundation, but it's all these other organizations that pitch in
Right.
to help
Right.
to do the different parts. Just like with roll call, we have other organizations that we network with. And the same here, USAA, American Airlines, with Patriot Anglers.
Yeah.
Just that organization, we've done so good at getting those amputees and paraplegics out there on the river,
right.
and to see them go out there and be able to fish and enjoy life.
Yes.
So I was out there several months ago, and there was one of those guys from Colorado, and he had a prosthetic leg, and he was walking where I couldn't walk. I think, man, how does he do that?
Yeah. It's free. And I think, well, and I think too, like you're saying, with Lisa, for example, she was the one who finally made us understand that what a paralyzed person needs, what an amputee needs, and even what somebody more of a senior. I mean, what people need, we as either younger or more able-bodied, we can't assume we know.
Right.
Yeah, we've got to make sure we meet their needs.
And it is still a lot of coordination with the VA, talking to them and making sure we're not putting them into something that would be, compatible with them. But there's a lot of checks and balances. And so the mobility dealers that we work with, they actually are really good at this too, because they've seen so many cases where,
Mobility Works is one really good one.
Mobility Works is a wonderful organization. They'll tell you, they'll go, well, this person really shouldn't have this type of vehicle because it wouldn't be compatible with their needs. So there's a lot out there. We're just always trying to find out what the individual wants and then try to make that happen for them and give them, it's never going to be the same as it was before their injury,
Right.
but we're going to try to, put a smile. And it's pretty easy to give service to these people because they're smiling. They're so happy. I mean, when we get to present them with something, I mean, it's a very rewarding for us, but it's because they're just so happy to get this. So it's really very great.
And like all 501c3 organizations, fundraising is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Fundraising's
And,
key.
We're participating in Carry the Load to raise funds for freedom mobility. That's going to be the city in the east. They do have a rally here in Fort Worth on Saturday, and it's over Memorial Day weekend. So you can go to our website and find out more about it. And we've got a banner at the bottom of the website with at the bottom of our show with your website. And then also you have a golf tournament in November.
Yes.
November 12th.
It's really been building. It's a family golf tournament.
Yes, it
Have a
is.
petting zoo and no telling what's going to show up. Had a jet fly by and a helicopter and
Yeah.
a Chinook helicopter the year before that. So
That's right. That's right. We
Which
had,
I think that Chinook helicopter pilot, or no, maybe not the pilot, but one of the guys on the flight and one of the girls on the ground, I think they kind of had a little romance going. It was kind of cute.
I think the Chinook's going to come back again
Right.
this year, and then we've already things are coming along really nice for that tournament. We've already got the all veterans group that's going to come in and jump in again. So Mike Elliott and his team.
Kevin's
We'll
going
be
to actually this year do real golf balls. Last year he thought he needed to do these styrofoam ones. It didn't
Styrofoam
work
was so windy, the balls I think blew back into someone's neighborhood.
And then Colonial's coming up. And
Colonial.
we're going to be the host couple for the military chalet that's going to be right just across the river here.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. Jim Thomason and the Rainwater Foundation, they put that all together.
Rainwaters, yeah, really
They're going
came
to give
through.
away 2 houses, I think.
Yes,
Jim said.
yes,
So,
they are.
a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
That one, because that's the same weekend as Carry the Load, Greg Clark, who is another board member, he is going to be our Carry the Load person, and his wife. And because obviously you just can't be,
2 places at one time.
no. So it's kind of hard that ended up on the same weekend, but and it's the same thing with the Holidays and Heroes. So I'll pull this hat up again. All of these organizations are definitely worth researching. All the money raised, 100% goes back. I mean, we have to pull a little bit administrative for like insurance and for the fundraising platform. And I know roll calls on
Right.
that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to pull some money for that. But otherwise, we have no paid employees. Holidays and Heroes has no paid employees. We just try to be good stewards of the money so that we're always giving out the money.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
And that's important for any organization,
It is. I talk to people a lot of times and they say, you don't have any paid people? And I say, nope, everything we do is all volunteers.
yeah,
There's a
And
lot of work. that goes
And it
behind the
is
scenes.
because, once a month, you think about once a month, we're feeding 400 to 500 people.
Right.
And
It's a big party.
you have to have a lot of volunteers. It's like doing a banquet every month, and
Right.
you've got to have enough volunteers that are, and they're the same volunteers. They're, Daughters of the American Revolution have a huge showing every month that help out, and just some special volunteers that every month they're there because they love these guys. We don't stand in line to get their food. Somebody's putting food on the table, on a plate, on a table, putting their drinks on the table, and we're not paying these people.
Right.
And they're just incredible, wonderful people. But if you spent
Yeah.
money on paying people to do the work, then you don't have any money to take care of the
Right.
mission.
That's
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Kevin,
Exactly.
then we appreciate you being here with Hometown Heroes.
Thank you so much for
to
having us.
Know more about the general's wife and the general and the flight in the helicopter to give birth on the night you were going to a party. What's some amazing stories, and we just appreciate y'all so much for all you do to help others that have needs. Y'all pour it all out all the time to help, and we really appreciate that because that's what makes the world go round. And Mary, she puts so much time in the roll call. We have a big roll call coming up a week from Friday.
We do. We're at over 600 of our own folks that have already RSVP. RSVPs close. I said technically today, they really close tomorrow. I'm just not sure what time tomorrow they close, but we've got to close them out at some point and get a list to the base.
Okay.
And so we anticipate the base is going to have a couple hundred because this is a combined where civic leaders are going to present an award to a member of the Air National Guard, the 301st Fighter Wing, the Marine organization out there, in the Navy. So 4 people will be recognized by the Fort Worth civic leaders. And that's for their community involvement because that's what we're all about, right?
Yeah.
So this is a combined luncheon, and we're going to have a great meal as always. It's going to be a sliced brisket and the kind of things that go along with that. The base is going to make their giant. Last year they did a 5-foot by 8-foot cake.
Oh,
They put it on like a dry
80th
erase
anniversary
board.
of
It was
course.
unbelievable how big this cake. I don't even know how they moved that thing. And Bill McIntyre, who we always miss his birthday because it's in July, and that's the only month we don't have a luncheon. He'll be 103 in July. And last year, to recognize the fact that we always miss his birthday at a luncheon, he cut the cake. And so last month, he caught me at the luncheon and he said, "I'm going to get to cut the cake again, right?" And I said, "Of course, Bill, you'll cut the cake, but he'll be 103
Wow.
in July." World War II veteran, and our speaker is Bill Parker, World War II, said to be the first wave
On D-Day.
Omaha Beach,
Yeah.
Wow.
and
And survived it.
and no, not a scratch, not a scrape, nothing on
Not a
that.
Purple Heart from that one. Huh?
Not from that one, but just unbelievable. When he says that he turned to look behind him and there was not many people alive behind him, and the water was blood red, and he spent many years not talking about it, and finally realized it a couple of years ago that maybe he should tell some stories and talk about it. But it's going to be great. The skipper out there at the base has been amazing, and I know what a great leader he's been in really supporting us and our organization, and having Bill and his group stay on base at the Navy Lodge. But it's going to be great. So we're looking forward to it. So if you're out there listening and you still haven't RSVP'd, you got to go to the website and do it because it's going to close tomorrow at some point.
Roll-call.org.
Yes.
That's it.
Larry, you got a lot of stuff going on. So
Yep. Well, it's election time.
all the politicians come by the ones that want to win. They come by to talk to Larry and interview with him.
Yeah.
So,
And we provide a platform for everybody. Yesterday, we had a National Socialist Workers Party lady. Not sure how many votes she's going to get, but she's run for mayor of Fort Worth, mayor of Dallas, and run for the presidency twice. She ran against Donald Trump.
And,
I'll be
and
there.
early voting starts next week.
24th, next Monday.
That's
How do
coming
you
up.
run for the mayor of Dallas and Fort Worth?
Different
She just like
times.
move?
Yeah, I guess she moved.
Get her apartment.
And I don't know where you have to be to run for the presidency, anywhere, I guess.
American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was about all that was America on that show. Everything else was Cuba, 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 Cuba.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
I don't think she realized she was where Mary is. So the American flag was right behind her. She probably is not happy about that, but anyway,
She probably photoshopped it out.
to each their own.
Thank you for having us. And
Yes.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Classic Auto Detail. Come and get your car detailed.
And our bike drive, this is the 37th year that I've given away bikes.
Over 16,000 and you're
Over 16,000.
Wow. Thank you very much.
And you don't have to fill out any paperwork or show your
Drive up.
W-2. Just drive up and get a bike. And I appreciate all the volunteers. We have a lot of
we
volunteers.
thank you for all you do.
Well-
I mean, you do so much. I think today on my Facebook memories was 2 years ago, we did the toilet paper and water drive
Yes,
right over there. It popped up today. So
Toilet paper.
Toilet
Oh, because the
paper and water
pandemic.
drive
we did
Yeah.
9 drives
Pat
that
Green
year.
was out there.
Pat Green was over there. Pat Green's going to be at our bike giveaway, and maybe Sir George, Mr. Straight. So we try to get everybody involved.
If
And
George doesn't show up, Larry and I'll sing, right?
yes,
Oh, good.
no, we
God.
need to bring Don Graves out and
Well,
sing.
he'll come
He'll
out.
be happy to
come
do
out.
it.
Oh, yeah.
It's the Saturday before Christmas.
Guys, thank you all for your work
Yep.
back there on the boards.
Thank you very much.
And next week we're going to have Wanda Cox. She's the new chair of the Air Power Foundation. So,
And a military spouse.
and military spouse, and married to Baghdad. So,
Have we ever thought about getting Perot Jr.? I know him too,
yeah, we'll get him.
because he does so much.
Well,
He provides airplane, like when a local
Jimmy
police
Falzoni,
officer,
yeah, he
Garrett Hull's wife, I've got a memorial to Garrett Hull in there. He provided the airplane, and that's not cheap. You know, there was several hundred people went up there to DC. So
he does a lot for a lot of different people.
anytime he told me himself, when a big company or corporation wants to come to the area, he personally flies them around and shows them all the good. And I said, and the bad? He said, pretty much all the good.
There you go.
You might also talk about, Hill Perot, his son. He's very active, very much involved now, and he's out there
With the Medal of Honor Museum.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Hillwood, they've got,
Yep.
they
got a
do
lot.
so much.
They really do. They do a lot.
Got their fingers in a lot of things going on. So.
Yeah. They do.
But thank you all for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
It's-
much.
It's an honor to have you, Mary. I'll see you next Friday. I hope to see you next Friday.
I thought you were going to see me tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, but at roll call. We want to get you to roll call.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. But tomorrow we're having a 4-hour, just round the table deal, 30-year anniversary of the Waco
Oh,
Mount
Gonna be
Carmel.
fresh.
I was delivering pizzas out there. Not me personally, but my drivers.
You were in Waco?
Yep, I worked for Pizza Hut at the time, and we were delivering pizzas out there to the ATF.
I don't remember where I was
wow.
on that day when it happened. I don't remember.
Don't either.
we were in Austin. That's where we were living.
You know,
Yeah.
we always
had
know.
just moved to Waco.
We all know where we were on 9/11, and I know where I was on when Elvis died.
Oh, I did too.
It stopped me in my tracks.
I saw Elvis when I was in high school at the Fort Worth Convention Center.
Really?
Yeah.
1970.
I think it was 1974.
Yes.
And anyway, I just remember watching him with the scarves. He would take a scarf and throw it in the audience, you know.
He used to be out here, that Lisa Marie, the DC-3, he had it tricked out at Meacham. And there was a gentleman I knew, John Hall, the Jordanaires, the real deep voice. And I was working out of detailing cars out of Frank Kent, the one that blew up that building. He came by on that Saturday and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Just getting the work ready. We're not open today." And he said, "Right out to Meacham Field with me." And I got to meet him. I went home and told my mom, I said, "God, I met Elvis Presley." And she was a nut for Elvis Presley. And I said, something was wrong with his eyes. I said, I guess he's going to have surgery. We know now he was on drugs.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and then I met him again another time we out at Meacham Field, sat in that plane with him for about 45 minutes, just me and him.
Oh, man.
That was the highlight of my,
Well,
but the biggest day is June 20th, the Tuskegee Airman, Dr. Eugene Richardson Jr. Just to shake that man's hand is,
it's gonna be a good few days that we'll have him here.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
That's neat.
that's a real hero.
yes,
So
Larry, we'll see you next week, or I'll see you tomorrow. but
tomorrow,
Next week at Hometown Heroes.
yep.
All
We'll
right.
see y'all next week.
Thank you.